Hello, I'm Kieran Lynch and welcome to OviCast, the Teagasc Sheep podcast. Each episode will bring you the latest insights, advice and technical updates for the sheep industry. We're joined this week by Dr. Natascha Meunier from Animal Health Ireland to tell us more about the Targeted Advisory Service on Animal Health, or TASAH, Parasite Control Consult, a new fully funded programme from Animal Health Ireland. The Parasite Control Consult is available to cattle and sheep farmers, and Natascha explains the aims of the programme and what it offers farmers who wish to participate. The TASAH programme will fund a veterinary farm visit from trained practitioners and 2 faecal egg counts. We discuss how this provides an ideal opportunity to start looking at the resistance data on farms. We finish up with Natascha explaining how to register for this programme and to avail of this initiative this season. We start off, however, with Natascha putting the challenge of resistance in context and why we need to proactively address it.
It is what we'd call a definite growing concern. The more we start looking for resistance, the more we find it. And historically, there hasn't been much evidence in Ireland because we haven't really looked very hard. But in sheep, for example, as part of the STEP program, I think many of your listeners might have been involved in that. They found that with the 3 main classes of drenches, so that's your white drenches, your yellow and your clear drenches, there was resistance to all 3 of those in Irish farms. So it is a growing concern. The more we look, the more we find it. And it's in cattle as well. We're starting to look more in cattle as well. And again, where we look, there's definite resistance and it's widespread. It's not a specific problem to Ireland. It's Europe-wide. It's international. It's across the world.
Unfortunately, Natascha, with resistance, once it's on the farm, it's very difficult to do anything about it. But it's a case of maybe slowing that process up and establishing where you are and what's working at an earlier point.
Yeah, so it's not a case of one day you don't have resistance and the next day you do. It's sort of like a gradual process. Is you might have a few. The way resistance works is it's an inherent trait in, say, the worms or the parasites, and they pass that down to the next generation in their genes. And so what happens is you might start with a very small problem and it's not noticeable and you don't see any changes on farm and the drugs all still work effectively. But slowly over time, that population of worms or parasites that have those resistant genes increases. And eventually you get up to a point where your drugs are no longer working as effectively as they used to do. And this can be noticeable. So your animals might start to become clinically ill, so might start to get scours even though you dosed them recently. And that's when it's a serious problem on farm. And as you said, it's really hard to get rid of. It's kind of established at the moment that once it's there, it's really difficult. It's permanent almost.
And it's going to become production limiting. Look, you're dealing with a lot of different health issues on farms, and many of them are applicable across species. The TASAH initiative, just for the benefit of the listeners, you might give me a little bit of background to what that programme covers.
So the TASAH is a DAFM-funded initiative that's co-financed under the Rural Development Plan, and it's I'm aware of a number of different initiatives in cattle. They look at various health concerns, and essentially what they provide for is on-farm an on-farm advisory service in animal health. That's what the TASAH stands for, the Targeted Advisory Service on Animal Health. And what that does is it brings training to the vets and then brings those vets to the farmer on farm to discuss a health issue. And in this case, it's parasite control. And this TASAH is then open to all cattle and sheep farmers in Ireland.
That's a new initiative for this year and possibly one of the first ones tackled in the sheep industry.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, yeah, this is the first one for sheep, which I think is fantastic.
So what's involved in that initiative?
So essentially how the TASAH works is we've already, at AHI, we've already started training for the vets. We've trained a number of vets over the last few months. And what happens then is the farmer needs to, if they're interested in the program, it's a voluntary program, they will register online and they'll nominate one of those trained vets. And that will allow then the farmer will be notified of that, the vet will be notified that a farmer has notified them, and then there will be a herd visit involved. The vet comes to the farm, discusses parasite control, makes 3 recommendations for the farmer, as well as an opportunity for 2 faecal egg counts. So fecal testing for roundworms for either 2 groups of animals or at 2 time points for the farmer.
So it's specifically focused on parasite control. And like them 2 samples, Natascha, we spoke there a minute ago about resistance. it would be an ideal opportunity to do a drench test for free and get your vet involved in interpreting the results.
Absolutely.
And maybe looking at the most appropriate one to test.
Absolutely. So the drench test, it's not as straightforward as all that sometimes, but this is an ideal opportunity. You've got 2 fecal samples that you can use. The drench test, generally how it works is that you would take a fecal sample today from a group of animals. You would drench the animals then with the product that you're using on farm, and then 7 to 14 days later, you'll go back and retest those same animals. You'll take another fecal sample. But you need to start with a high enough egg count, and then what you're looking for is that if the drench is effective, that count will drop with the second sample. And so sometimes interpreting that result, I think getting the vet involved in that is very useful, just to make sure that the protocol's been done correctly and that what you're seeing then, he can help you then. What's the next step? Is this product still working effectively, or should we switch to something else?
And look, the key point of this is funded, this is covered, there is no cost associated with it. I suppose it's important to put in context that we're going to see changes in the prescription having an effect on farm in the coming years. So this is something we're going to need to become a bit more involved in. Certainly veterinary practitioners and farmers are going to need to become more involved with.
Absolutely. So this is, just to reiterate, this is a free service to farmers. And there are changes with the prescription that are coming for the antiparasitics. So there was a new legislation that was introduced in January this year, and fortunately we've been given a bit of extra time for the antiparasitics. We've got until the 1st of December now, until those need a veterinary prescription. But what that means is that the vet needs to have an understanding of your farm, has worked with you before. So this is an ideal opportunity to get the vet on farm ahead of that deadline, just so that they know what kind of production system it is, and that they can prescribe appropriately for your farm.
You can start addressing the issue. Just Natascha, like you've completed a round of training with a lot of vets around the country. How does a farmer find out, is their vet approved to go with this training? You have a list up on the website, I assume?
Yeah, so if anyone goes to the Animal Health Ireland website under the parasite control section, they'll be able to find some information about the TASAH consults. We have a map of all the vets that have undergone the training there, but also when they register, they do need to choose their vet from a list. We've got about, at this point, 460 vets that have been trained across 250 practices. So it's all over the country. It's not... we've got all regions covered, but they should then be able to find their practice or a close by practice from that list.
So they have to nominate a particular vet, and you said there is good nationwide coverage on it. Just in terms of eligibility, yes. Again, all cattle and sheep farmers, any herd or flock owners can apply for it, I assume? Absolutely, any Irish herd or flock owners can apply. There's only one visit that's being funded, so it's linked to your herd number or your flock number, and when you register, and that's all that's really needed. Look, it's definitely a golden opportunity to get on track with this for midsummer on. It's really a time we need to start looking at parasite control on farms, and it's a good opportunity to make use of the scheme. Absolutely. So we're starting now, heading into parasite control from now on becomes a major concern on farms. The height of the summer season is the ideal time to look at whether those drenches are working effectively that are being used, and the fecal air counts are just an opportunity to do that, and please do make use of that. And so there is a dedicated page for this. I'll include that link, Natascha, in the description for anyone who wants to follow through, and I assume application forms, everything can be found on that page. Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned, it's an online form, but if any of your listeners are maybe not that keen to fill something in online, they can also approach their vets directly. The vets also have a paper copy of that form that they can then just fill in if needed, and then they can post that to us. So that's another way to get registered. But most of the interaction will be directly with the vet from then on, just organising the visit and organising the fecal samples. Perfect. Natascha, great opportunity for producers this year. Thanks very much for coming on and telling us a bit more about it. Thanks so much. Okay, we're going to have to leave the episode there at this point. It's a very useful programme. I think in the context of where we are at the moment, it's something that a lot of producers should consider registering for. We're seeing a lot of changes coming down the tracks. We know resistance is a big issue. This is an ideal opportunity to start doing something about it. I have included a link to the Animal Health Ireland webpage where you can find out more about the programme, see what veterinary practitioners are trained, and register for it. That's included in the description. That's it for me for this episode. Again, for any updates on the sheep programme, keep an eye on our Twitter page at Teagasc Sheep. I'm Kieran Lynch. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and get notified of any updates.